The courtroom was quiet, but not in any reverent sense. It was the quiet of bureaucracy, a clean, sterile place built for processing endings, not mourning them. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The judge coughed once, glanced at his notes. I could hear the cheap plastic wheels of the stenographer's chair shifting every time she adjusted her posture. Carol sat across from me, legs crossed, hands folded neatly over a leather folder I'd never seen before. She wore navy blue, serious, efficient, forgettable. Her hair was pinned up in the way she used to do when she had job interviews. 20 years, and I still remembered the little things. She wouldn't look at me. Not really. I want the house, she said calmly. The Audi, and the savings accounts. All of them. She didn't blink, didn't flinch, didn't even pretend it was hard to say. Then came the real part. I'm not seeking custody of Haley, she added. That one landed harder than she thought it would. The words dropped like coins in a deep well. The kind of silence that followed wasn't sad. It was hollow, the sound of something long dead finally being named. The judge nodded, lips pursed. No emotion, just process. Steve, my attorney, leaned in. His voice dropped to a whisper only I could hear. We can fight this. He meant it, fight for the accounts, the equity, the business. The house I'd rebuilt board by board after the flood damage in '08. The retirement fund I'd built quietly while Carol invested in yoga studios and Pinterest furniture businesses that never made it past month 6. I didn't even look at him. We agree, I said. The room didn't breathe for a second. Steve's jaw flexed. The judge raised his eyebrows. The court reporter stopped typing. And Carol, for the first time all morning, moved. A small twitch in her lips. Not a smile. Something tighter. Almost nervous. As if she'd been waiting for a war and didn't know what to do when the white flag rose instead. I reached for the pen. Steve hissed under his breath. Are you sure about this? I signed. My name. Once, twice, then a third time, the one that really ended it. Carol didn't say thank you. She didn't say anything. Just sat there, her knuckles whitening slightly on the edges of that leather folder. I don't know what she expected. Rage? Pleading? A man reduced to begging at the altar of a dying marriage? That wasn't me. Not anymore. Because here's the truth. The marriage had already ended. Not in that courtroom, but months earlier around 3:12 a.m. In our bedroom. The night I saw her phone screen. She was asleep. Or pretending to be. Back turned. Phone angled slightly toward her stomach like she thought I wouldn't see the light. But the glow hit the ceiling and caught my eye. I reached for a glass of water and glanced down. One message lit up. Just one. That's all it took. Dead weight. No name. No context. Just those 2 words, dangling like meat on a hook. Then another. Soon you'll be free. And suddenly, I wasn't in bed anymore. I was standing in a version of my own life that didn't recognize me. The house we'd built became scaffolding. The walls, props. I looked at the woman sleeping beside me and saw something cold. Not just betrayal, but calculation. Because these messages weren't new. They were part of a long string. A rhythm. She hadn't been texting in anger or haste. She'd been preparing. Freedom, she called it. That's what she wanted. Not from abuse. Not from pain. But from inconvenience. And I, the man who paid the mortgage, who cooked when she forgot to eat, who made birthday pancakes for Haley every year without fail, had become an obstacle. I didn't wake her up. I didn't scream. I just lay back down and watched the ceiling until the morning light slid through the blinds and stained our walls yellow. For the next 6 months, I said nothing. Not when she started spending nights at the office. Even though she worked remote. Not when she logged off her laptop the second I entered the room. Not when she stopped saying love you back. Or when she began leaving Haley's school events early, offering vague excuses that even our daughter saw through. The house changed first. That's where it always starts. The warmth goes. The little things. Towels stop getting folded. The fridge gets emptier. You feel like a guest, a tolerated one, in rooms you painted yourself. She began buying things she didn't talk to me about. A new rug. A teak dining set we didn't need. Framed art with hashtags in the corner that read like Etsy bios. Hashtag fresh start, hashtag new energy, hashtag next chapter. The captions weren't for me. They were for the version of her life where I didn't exist. I started sleeping on the edge of the bed. Not because she asked. Because I couldn't bear the silence between us when we both faced the wall. Haley noticed. Kids always do. She didn't ask directly, but her eyes lingered longer on me at breakfast. Her hugs got tighter when I dropped her off at school. Once, after a field trip, she slipped her hand into mine and said, "You're not going anywhere, right?" I told her no. I meant it. I still mean it. That courtroom, months later, was just paperwork. The death certificate of a marriage that had stopped breathing long before. I could have fought for everything. I had enough evidence to ruin her. Screenshots, phone logs, GPS tags that didn't line up with the places she claimed to be. But I didn't need revenge. I needed out. Because the truth isn't just that Carol left. It's that she stopped seeing me. Stopped seeing the man who fixed her car heater in February, who took care of her mother when the dementia set in. Stopped seeing the father figure who sat through every recital, even when Haley flubbed the notes, even when the other dads didn't show up. She didn't leave a marriage. She canceled a subscription, like it was a gym membership, like 20 years could be reduced to a single click. And in the end, that's exactly what I let her do. I signed the house over, the same house I rebuilt after the flood, floor by floor. I gave her the Audi, the one I sold my truck to help finance. I gave her the accounts, years of quiet saving, weekend overtime, missed vacations. Because I knew something she didn't. She wanted the stage. I kept the spotlight. I walked out of that courtroom with the only thing that mattered. My daughter. My name. My spine intact. She can keep her freedom. But she'll find out soon enough what she actually bought. I didn't find out all at once. That would have made it easier. A single clean wound, deep but manageable. No, the betrayal came in fragments. A missing document here, a suspicious charge there. Like slow poison. At first, I assumed it was oversight. Human error. But Carol didn't make mistakes with money. She was meticulous with receipts. Always the one to balance the books, to highlight line items with that pink marker she kept in the kitchen drawer. I used to tease her for it. The way she categorized groceries with such reverence, like they were sacred texts. But somewhere in those last few months, the pink highlighter disappeared. Instead came vague explanations. I moved some money around. For the business. It's temporary. I didn't push back. I watched. The truth doesn't need to be chased. It reveals itself if you're quiet long enough. Haley's college fund was the first to vanish. Not all at once, but the balance was wrong. Smaller. I checked it twice. Then again. The numbers didn't add up. What was once a promise, years of saving, of skipping luxuries, of quietly diverting bonuses into that protected account, now sat hollow. Carol had drained it. $63,000. Gone. She didn't ask. Didn't discuss. She rerouted it like it was hers to move. Like our daughter's future was some optional investment she could cash in for her new beginning. That's what she called it. A beginning. She said the money was repurposed. For her business. For the life she wanted after me. Studio leases. Marketing firms. A rebrand. She changed her last name on her business cards before the judge even finalized the divorce. Carol Lynn Creative, it said, bold serif font, clean lines, no mention of Haley, no mention of the man who had quietly funded every second of her new dream. I didn't scream, didn't confront her, didn't even raise my voice. Instead, I started documenting. Not because I wanted revenge, that would have been too loud, too emotional. I was preparing for something else. Wait, the kind of weight truth carries when you let it sit long enough. The kind you don't have to throw, you just drop it, and it breaks everything beneath it. Screenshots, receipts, withdrawal notices, bank transfers, emails from design consultants who billed her thousands for logos she'd never use. I printed everything, labeled each folder, took photos of the garage stacked with unopened office furniture still in boxes. She had furnished an entire future without me, and without Haley, because that was the part that burned. Not that she spent the money, but that she did it knowing exactly where it came from. Haley's name was on that fund. I remember the day we opened it. She was 8. We sat together at the bank, the kind with plastic plants and too much glass, and I let her write her name on the deposit envelope. She spelled it wrong. The teller laughed. We laughed. I told her, "This is for the future, your future." She smiled like she understood. I think she did. Carol did too. But she spent it anyway. I never told Haley. Even when she asked if we were still okay for college. Even when she said her friends' parents were worried about tuition hikes. Even when she offered to take a year off to help save us money. She said it without hesitation, like it was her job to make things easier for us. I wanted to scream, not at her, Carol, but I didn't, because silence, I've learned, is heavier than rage. Rage burns fast. Silence corrodes. So I watched. I watched Carol buy a second monitor for her branding firm. I watched her sign for packages she didn't tell me about. I watched her smile wider every time she said she was booked through spring. And I said nothing. That's the part that confuses people. Why didn't you fight? Why didn't you stop her? Why didn't you say something when she was looting your future? Because I was done trying to be understood. I was preparing to be undeniable. That requires patience. Every night after Haley went to sleep, I'd go through the transactions again. Double-check dates. Note which accounts the money came from. Some were ours. Others were Haley's. A few were under my name alone. Once Carol didn't even have permission to access. She'd used my cards, my identity, my trust. The lines were blurry now, legally, emotionally, morally. But one thing was clear. She never planned to build a future with me. Just on top of me. Changed the way I looked at her. The way I heard her footsteps. The way her voice, once background music to my evenings, now scraped like static against the inside of my skull. She'd sit on the couch, scrolling her tablet, watching videos of boss women, talking about empowerment, about reinvention. She took notes like a disciple, highlighted quotes, pinned them on the fridge. Reclaim your narrative. Design your exit. Don't ask for permission. And she didn't. The irony was sharp enough to taste. This wasn't some act of desperation. She wasn't leaving to escape abuse or neglect. She was leaving because she believed she deserved more, and she was willing to cannibalize our daughter's future to get it. That's not empowerment. That's theft wrapped in hashtags. Still, I waited. I let her think I was broken, that I'd surrendered, that the man who didn't fight in court wouldn't fight anywhere else. But in the garage I had a whiteboard. I wrote down every transaction, item by item, date by date. She never saw it. She never asked why I started locking the office door. She didn't care. And that told me everything I needed to know. People reveal themselves in silence, in what they don't say when they know they've done wrong. Carol never apologized, never offered to repay the money, never even said Haley's name when talking about the fund. She wanted a clean break. But there's no such thing. There are consequences. So I waited. The final entry on the whiteboard was the day she filed the paperwork to remove my name from her business registry. That same afternoon, I picked up Haley from school. She had a flyer in her hand, something about a summer internship in D.C., a program she'd dreamed about for years. I asked if she wanted to apply. She said yes, but that she didn't want to be a burden. That night, I took down the whiteboard. Every lie was documented. Every dollar accounted for. It was time. She'd built her empire on a lie. And I was done holding the foundation together. The final hearing was held in a smaller courtroom. No jury, just wood-paneled walls, a judge with more years behind him than ahead, and 2 attorneys who had clearly stopped believing in the people they represented. Carol sat in a cream blazer like she was dressing for a real estate seminar. She didn't look at me. Hadn't since the day I walked out of our old house without so much as slamming the door. I remember the look on her face back then. Not guilt, not remorse, just calculation. She was weighing the numbers, not the damage. This was supposed to be a formality. She'd already won. The house, the Audi, the furniture we argued over last Christmas. Even the savings accounts, mine, hers, and the ones meant for Haley. All of it lined up in her column like a final invoice. All that was left now were signatures. Steve, my attorney, asked one last time if I wanted to renegotiate. There's still time, he said. You have leverage. I shook my head. I only want Haley. He didn't speak after that. Just nodded once, like a man signing off on a patient who refused treatment. Carol's attorney looked tired. Maybe he'd finally seen the spreadsheet I delivered the night before, the one Steve and I had built in silence for months. Or maybe he was just starting to realize what Carol's victory would cost. The hearing was brief. I signed first. No hesitation. No bargaining. Just ink and paper. Then Carol. She didn't flinch. She thought this was over. That I'd rolled over. That I was finished. She didn't know I had saved the best for last. When the judge asked if there were any final disclosures, Steve stood. Calmly. Quietly. As if we were simply extending a meeting. Your Honor, he said, sliding a sealed folder across the desk. We're submitting documentation pertaining to undisclosed debts, liabilities, and improper usage of funds tied to the marital estate. The room shifted. Not physically, but something in the air tensed. Carol's attorney looked at the folder like it might explode. The judge raised an eyebrow. These weren't disclosed during discovery, the judge said flatly. No, Steve replied, because Mrs. Lynn concealed them. We have bank records, photographic evidence, and proof of financial misrepresentation, including the misuse of funds from a minor's education account. Carol's hand moved, just slightly, toward her lawyer. Not to stop him, to anchor herself. The judge flipped the folder open. Took time. He read in silence, page after page. Receipts, screenshots, vendor disputes, emails from branding firms Carol had hired using business funds before the LLC was even legally registered. A lease agreement on a studio paid for 6 months in advance with money siphoned from Haley's college fund. But the worst part? The tax violations. Carol hadn't just spent recklessly. She'd reported income she didn't earn and failed to report earnings from freelance work she claimed was a hobby. She used our joint filing to hide her tracks. And now, with the marriage legally severed, every ounce of that weight belonged to her. The judge set the folder down. His voice didn't rise. Judges don't yell. They don't need to. These documents indicate a pattern of financial negligence and possible fraud, he said. Carol's attorney shifted in his seat. Your Honor, we'd like time to review. You had time. The judge cut him off. The petitioner chose to withhold this information. The court will order an independent review. In the meantime, assets may be frozen pending the outcome of a tax and debt assessment. Carol finally looked at me. Not rage. Not confusion. Just dawning horror. She had the house, but the lien notices would arrive by spring. She had the Audi, but the debt collectors had already flagged the plates. She had the business, but the IRS would soon hold the deed. She had it all. Every nail, every shingle, every key, and every ounce of liability that came with it. I didn't smile. That would have been small. This wasn't about vengeance. This was about balance. The hearing ended. The judge didn't slam a gavel, just nodded and stood. The clerk gathered the exhibits. The bailiff opened the door. Carol didn't move. Outside, the hallway was cool and empty. Steve walked beside me, quiet, thoughtful. You didn't have to let it go that far, he said. No, I replied. But I needed her to carry it. He understood. Some things can't be explained. They have to be carried. A week later, I got a letter. Not from Carol, from her accountant. They were requesting cooperation for the ongoing audit. I didn't respond. That wasn't my weight anymore. We moved on a Monday. 2 bedrooms. 1 bath. Edge of Nashville, past the main drag, where the sidewalks start to crack and nobody complains because they know it won't be fixed anyway. I told the landlord we didn't need much. Just enough room for a teenage girl and a man rebuilding from nothing. He handed me the keys like I was doing him a favor. The apartment was small, but the walls were clean. The windows faced west. Haley liked that. Said it made the evenings feel slower, like the world wasn't in such a hurry. There was no ceremony, no housewarming, just 2 people unloading boxes from the back of a rented van that smelled like oil and cardboard. She carried her own things. Never once asked for help. I think she wanted to prove something. By midnight, her room was already half decorated. Posters, string lights, the cheap rug we picked out together at a discount store. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She didn't complain. Not once. I remember sitting on the floor in the kitchen that night. No chairs yet, just a box of tools for a table I hadn't assembled. She walked in holding 2 cans of soda. No words. Just handed me one, sat down beside me, and leaned her head against my shoulder. We didn't say a thing. That silence held more meaning than anything Carol ever said in 20 years. I went back to work the next day. No office, no desk job, just repair work, private, local, word of mouth, plumbing fixes, electrical rewiring, the kind of jobs no one wants until something breaks and they remember my name. I started from scratch. No savings, no safety net, but I had my hands, and my hands remembered what to do. Haley picked up part-time shifts at a diner off Main. Hostess 3 nights a week. She wore black slacks and a white blouse and tucked her hair behind her ear like her mother used to when she was nervous. I wanted to tell her she didn't have to work, that this wasn't her burden, but I saw the pride in her when she counted tips on the couch, and I kept my mouth shut. She was becoming something solid, something forged. Carol kept calling. At first it was about logistics, school paperwork, insurance, loose threads she forgot to tie before unraveling the whole tapestry. Then it was different. Her voice changed, softer, quieter. She started calling late, after the courts had their say, after the mail began to arrive. Letters she didn't talk about, but I knew she read 5 times before hiding them under junk mail. Her business started to fray. The studio rent ballooned. Clients backed out. Her brand consultant vanished with a deposit. The IRS sent a notice. Not final, not yet, but loud enough to knock the wind out of her confidence. She called one night just after midnight. "I'm underwater," she said. No greeting. No preamble. I didn't say anything. "Can we talk?" I looked at the clock. Haley had school in the morning. Her backpack was by the door. Her shoes lined up next to mine like they'd always belonged there. "No," I said. "Not anymore." She didn't cry. She didn't yell. Just hung up. 3 days later, she called again. Left a voicemail. Said she wanted to see Haley. Said she missed her. Said she was sorry. Not for what she did, but for how it ended. I let Haley decide. She said no. She made her choice, Haley told me. She doesn't get to backpedal because it's hard now. I didn't teach her that. She learned it on her own. Sometimes people think the hardest part of divorce is the split. The moment the signatures go down and you walk away from the wreckage of what you built. But that's not it. The hardest part is the silence afterward. The echo. The emptiness that reveals how much space someone took up, and how little of it mattered in the end. We filled that silence with small things. Haley started drawing again. Something she hadn't done in years. I caught her sketching once at the kitchen counter, the same counter I built from a salvage door and 4 cut legs. I asked what she was drawing. She said, "Us." It was rough, her lines always were, but it was clear. Me in the foreground, back bent, toolbox in hand. Her on the porch steps, watching. The sun behind us, wide and orange. That picture stayed on the fridge for months. I never touched it. Never moved it when I cleaned. It earned its place. The court ordered a review of Carol's financials. They found enough to flag her accounts. She owed more than she could pay. The house was leveraged. The car, repossessed. Her business licenses lapsed one by one. She sent letters. Certified mail. Formal. Meant to sound professional, as if she still held authority in a life she'd already lost. I read each one, then filed them away. Not in anger. Not in revenge. In case Haley ever needed to understand. One night, months later, Haley sat across from me at the diner. I picked her up after a shift. Late Friday. The air thick with heat and summer dust. She stared at her milkshake like it held some secret. Then said, "Do you think she loved me?" The question tore something open. I wanted to say yes. That of course she did. that no mother would willingly abandon her child's future for a rebrand and a one-bedroom loft with fake plants and ring lights. But lying felt like betrayal. Again. I think she loves herself more, I said. And sometimes that's all a person knows how to do. Haley didn't cry. She just nodded, sipped her shake. I realized then that she wasn't asking for reassurance. She was asking for permission to stop wondering. She needed to be free of it. The weight, the ache, the open-ended questions that gnaw at you when someone leaves without explaining why. I gave her that freedom. The days started to string together. The ordinary kind. Wake up, make breakfast, work a shift, eat together, sleep. Repeat. There was peace in it. Not joy, not yet, but peace. And then something strange happened. We laughed. I don't remember what about. A spilled drink. A dumb TV commercial. Something so small it wouldn't matter to anyone else. But it broke the quiet. Cracked the wall. Haley threw her head back, and I saw the child in her. Not the girl who'd been betrayed, but the one who still believed in the world. I laughed too. Not because things were fixed. Not because the pain was gone. But because we were still here. Standing. Breathing. Unbroken. Carol never found her footing. Last I heard, she moved out of state. Left a trail of debts and half-built ventures behind her. Her Facebook became a mosaic of inspirational quotes and filtered selfies. A shrine to reinvention that forgot the wreckage in its wake. I didn't follow her story. I didn't need to. I had mine. Haley finished high school with honors. Got into a college upstate. Full ride not because of money but merit. She earned every inch of her future. I helped her pack. Drove her up. Stood awkwardly in her dorm until she smiled and said, "You can go now." I cried on the drive back. Not from loss but relief. Because I kept the one thing Carol tried to spend. I held on to it, protected it, and when the smoke cleared, it stood on its own. That was my victory, quiet, complete. So here's the question. Was I cruel for letting her fail? For watching her drown in debts she poured herself into? Or was that the only justice this world still believes in? Weight returned to the hands that created it? Tell me, would you have carried it? Would you have stayed? Or would you, like me, have let the silence speak louder than the apology that never came?